Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylee, and today we are going to go through my top 5 nonfiction books that I read in 2022 that I think will change your life if you have not read them already. So this will be kind of a quick little synopsis of the book, what I thought, why I think it is a game-changing book. And yeah, I think that last year I definitely listened to a lot more books than I read books, and I tend to listen to nonfiction books on Audible because to me they kind of almost remind me of a podcast in some way. So I just tend to gravitate towards nonfiction on Audible, but I also do have some that I did read the physical book of, so it's kind of a nice little mix of both. And in the nonfiction realm, some were more of the memoir, biography type of thing, some were a little bit more business focused, some were more spiritual or mindset focused. So there's a nice little array of all different kinds of nonfiction books, not just self-help style books, but a nice variety. So we will jump right into it in no particular order. Number 1, I have Women Who Lead, or When Women Lead, sorry. I have When Women Lead by Julia Bornstein. She is I believe she's a journalist on like CNBC, and what I loved so much about her book is she basically interviews a bunch of top women founders or top women CEOs and just goes through all of these just unique and just badass qualities that these leader women have. And it was such an interesting book because on a side note, my number 1 requirement for an audiobook is that it has to be read by the author, because I just feel like when it's read by the author, there's so much more passion behind the reading. And I feel like when it's read by the author, of course, there's gonna be so much more passion behind the reading than when it's just a audiobook reader or whatever they're called. And she does such a great job at just going through all these different women founders from all different kinds of businesses, everywhere from Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop to the founder of Bumble to the founder of Clear, and just really dives into not only what makes these women so profound and so unique, but also just the you know, speed bumps or whatever you want to call them that they ran into just being a woman in the corporate world, in the CEO type of realm. And it was just a fascinating book. If you are somebody who is an entrepreneur or who just wants to elevate the way that you lead or the way that you look at business, this is such a great book to just inspire you and, you know, to hone in on those qualities that I'm sure all of us have to make us great leaders. Number 2, I will go with a classic, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I feel like this is a book that probably everybody has read, but it is one that was really game-changing for me during a little bit of a harder time in my journey this past year. And the premise is that, you know, we all have this like ceiling that our subconscious or our, you know, programming tells us we can only reach this level of success, and if we get beyond that, we start to somewhat self-sabotage or to, you know, hurt our potential to get further. And it's just such an interesting way to look at it. I think that such an interesting way to be able to look at or just become more aware of when you start to reach a level of success, whether that's financial, whether that is you know, a number of clients or whatever it is. When you start to notice when you've reached a level of success, and if you start to sabotage yourself, or if you start to notice that these negative thoughts get a little bit heavier and a little bit louder as your success starts to go a little bit higher, go a little bit higher. I just think it was such a very interesting, compelling read to just open up and be a little more thought-provoking on some potential behaviors that you have around success, some thoughts you have around money or success or influence and impact, all these types of things that might be holding yourself back more than you think you are. Number 3, this is a very short read, a very short listen for me, because I listened to it on Audible. And I think it's a book that to me was a little bit more unknown, or not as well known. And it is called Chop Wood, Carry Water by Joshua Metcalf. And this is probably one of the best self-help type of books, not only because the concept of falling in love with the process over the end result was, of course, a very profound thought, but the fact that he provides you with these concepts through story form. So it's not just, hey, these are the steps to fall in love with the process, A, B, C, and D, but it is a beautiful story of, you know, a man who wants to be like a samurai fighter, but the sensei that he's working with really makes him go through these repetitive, mundane, seemingly useless things over and over and over again until he is ready to become this end result that he's been looking forward to. And it's such a beautiful story of that I don't want to say desperation, but just that drive and ambition that we sometimes have to get to the end result, that we just forget about not that we forget about it, but I think we don't enjoy, or we don't respect the process that it takes to get there. And hands down, it's probably, I think I would listen to the book in a day. I don't think it's very, very long. I can actually tell you how long it is right now, but let me open it in my thing. It's a 2.5 hour read. So if that goes to tell you, it's a very, very short, easy read. I highly, highly recommend this book. Even if you're not really into this whole self-help realm, I think that it is such a beautiful, impactful book, primarily because it doesn't tell you in like a typical self-help kind of way. It tells you through the eyes of this story that is so relatable, so impactful, and just beautifully written. So that is number 3. Number 4 is kind of a cluster of books, and I actually have these ones with me. I think we all heard about Brianna Wiest with the like 101 essays, The Mountain Is You, and then This Is How You Heal. These 3 books, primarily these 2, because this one is obviously just a pile of essays, like short passages, equally as impactful, but these 2 are more of like a typical book chapter form. So I cannot say enough about, especially this one was the first one of hers that I read, and she writes in probably one of the most relatable and beautiful ways that I've really ever read before. Her writing is so authentic, so genuine, and she almost, without knowing, puts, I think, some of those thoughts that we have that we can't articulate, she writes them out so beautifully. These books, I can't get enough of these books. I think I've reread each one of these at least twice last year, and it led me to a thought catalog binge read. And thought catalog, to me, I don't even know how to describe it, but they do have a lot of writers, primarily like poems and short passage type books, and I could not get enough of them. I read pretty much every one of Brianna Wiest's books, Ceremony and Saltwater. Charlotte Freeman was another one that I read. This one is Everything You'll Ever Need You Can Find Within Yourself. And they are just, again, like super short little passages, but I'm telling you, if you have ever been somebody who has thoughts and has feelings and emotions that you just can't describe how you're feeling or what you're actually going through, go to Thought Catalog, read through their titles and their descriptions of their books with their authors, and I am telling you, you will find something that relates to you. And this is just like a book that I have like on my nightstand that I can just open it up and read a passage before I go to bed. Or they're even great journal prompts if you're somebody who struggles to journal, but you can open one, read it, and let it kind of inspire a little bit of a brain dump when it comes to journaling. I'm telling you, Thought Catalog is, it's not everybody's thing, but I do really highly recommend it, especially Brianna Weiss, Charlotte Freeman. There's one that's, her first name is Bianca. She had a podcast too, but she does beautiful writings, and I just can't say enough about all the books on there. And we get to the last book, and I will caveat this by saying that I did listen to this book back in 2020, when a time when I would say it was the biggest catalyst to kind of my downturn of mental health. And it was a book that I found on Audible kind of just randomly. I don't even know how I came across it, but I listened to it probably in, sorry, I'm just trying to find it so I make sure I get the title right. I don't even know how I found it. Anyways, the point is that it was the most incredible book that I have ever read, that I related to so deeply in a moment of such despair and darkness. And it is called Reasons to Stay Alive by Matt Haig. I don't know, H-A-I-G. I will link all the books down below, of course, and they will be on my Goodreads profile, linked down below also. This book is another book that is read by the author, and it details, and it's like a trigger warning because it deals with suicide and suicidal thoughts and severe depression and things like that. So if that is super triggering for you, might not be the book for you, because he does go into pretty deep detail in his experience with, you know, wanting to commit suicide, his experience with his severe deep depression, and just his story of coming out on the other side. And I really can't even describe how genuine, authentic, raw, and just beautiful that this story was, and how much it made me feel in that moment that I wasn't alone. That I think when we get into these deep places of our depression or suicidal thoughts and ideations and that kind of thing, that we really think that we are the only one, that we are on an island by ourselves and nobody could possibly understand what we're thinking and what we're going through. And that was kind of where I was at. I couldn't really speak to anybody. It was COVID. Like, I didn't really have therapy sessions. It just didn't feel like the connection was there. And I'm telling you, this book saved my life in so many different ways, because it made me feel like I wasn't alone, and like I wasn't, I don't want to say crazy, but just that I wasn't making these things up. Like, these feelings were real and they were important to process through. I don't know. I feel like it is just, if you are somebody who deals with mental health or has family or friends that do, I think it's just such a beautiful book to give you. If you don't deal with it at all, it gives you insight into kind of what your significant other or your friend or family member might be going through, to read such a raw description of his journey through it all. So I think it is hands down a great book. Another one that's great to listen to. Just an all-around beautiful book, and I just absolutely loved it. So that is kind of my main top nonfiction books. These are the ones that impacted me the most this past year, and I will have more listed on my Goodreads that I really did enjoy. I did listen to, like I said, a ton of them, but some of course kind of were inspiring in the moment but then fell short a little bit later on and weren't very memorable. But I will make sure to add the ones in my Goodreads profile, whatever you call it, that I loved the most. Even if I don't mention it here, I will make sure to put it on there. And then yeah, kind of my goal going into 2023 is I really want to add in a lot more fiction books. I love the idea of just reading instead of watching TV or on my phone, but actually being able to be engulfed in a good fiction book this year, or multiple fiction books, is kind of my big goal. I definitely love nonfiction and will always continue to read or listen to nonfiction. So make sure to follow me. Oh my gosh, skipped it. Make sure to follow me on Instagram if you want to follow along with the books that I'm reading. It is my reading era. We're gonna make it happen, and I would love for you to follow along. And you can always comment down below your favorite books, or if you read any of these books, what you thought of them, and I would love to read it. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe, like the video, all the things, and I will see you next time.